Thank you very much. All right, let's get to it. Today we are talking about attribution analysis. The number one question people have for presentations is, will the slides be available? The answer is yes. If you go to wherecanIgettheslides.com, you will be able to get the slides right now. The number one problem we face as marketers is, can we communicate marketing impact? In the 2019, the 2019 CMO survey released last month, 500 chief marketing officers were asked, what are your top priorities? The number one priority by a hefty margin of 2/3 was demonstrate marketing impact, right? Here's why we don't do this and why our CMOs are asking us for this, because marketers are not the most quantitatively inclined people. In fact, companies are not terribly quantitatively inclined. From that exact same survey, when asked, how are you quantifying the impact of your marketing spending, only 36% of companies said they can quantify what their marketing is doing for them. 50% said we have good qualitative guesses, which is a nice way of saying we're just making it up, and 12% said we don't measure anything. That means that 2/3 of us, 2/3 of you in this room are just making things up, which is fine and great and awesome for creativity, for storytelling, for live video, not so much when you need to prove the ROI of what it is that you are doing. Here's the bad news, right? When you actually dig into the data about social media, we are not delivering impact, right? Despite massive investments, social media makes modest contributions to company performance. This is, again, 500 CMOs. What do you suppose is the natural outcome of something like this? Poor performance leads to disaster. And to the person who's yelled out less budget, you are absolutely correct. If I had prizes to throw at you, I'd throw one at you. But I don't. Social media spending has tumbled from 13% of marketing budget to 11%. In just this last survey, companies are starting to go, what are we paying all this money for? How do we fix this problem? How do we get around this problem? How do we keep our jobs, our budgets, and be able to do the cool things that we want to do? The answer is attribution analysis. We're going to talk about how you get started with attribution analysis with the 4 whats. What is it? Which is what happened, so what, now what, and what next. First, analytics. We're talking about measuring things. Companies are now using analytics more than ever. This depressing stat says that 43% of companies are using analytics to make decisions, which leads me to ask, what are you doing the other 56% of the time? Again, we're just guessing. But this is at least a hopeful sign that line is generally going up and to the right, which means that everyone in this room will be asked to justify and measure what it is you're doing. We begin with what happened. What is attribution analysis? What is it? It is who gets credit. From the Latin, ad tribute, who gets the thing. Who gets credit? It's all about proving cause and effect. Can you prove that what you did had an impact? That's all attribution analysis is. It sounds cool because a consulting firm needed to make more money and selling something that sounded different. It's just proving what happened. There are 3 prerequisites to attribution analysis, and of analytics in general, by the way. Number 1, you have to have clearly defined business goals. If you're not sure how your marketing is related to your business goals, I would suggest that you update your LinkedIn profile now, because you're going to lose your job because your company has no idea what it's doing, right? What are your business goals? Number 2, you need to be crystal clear about your KPIs, your key performance indicators. Out of curiosity, somebody, you don't have to just shout it out. What are some of the KPIs you measure by? Anyone just want to yell one out?
Click-through.
Traffic, CPA, attention,
conversion rate,
CTR. Okay. Now, for all of you who yelled out all these numbers, here's a question to ask yourself. If that number goes the wrong way, do you get fired? If the answer is no, it's not a KPI. The only numbers that are KPIs are numbers that you will get a bonus for or you will get fired for. Right? That's a KPI. And by the way, they don't necessarily have to do with business goals. I used to have a client, the CEO was rabidly in love with himself and his Twitter follower count. Now, most of us would agree that most of the time, in most circumstances, Twitter followers is not the most impactful metric that you could be using. But in our case, he said, if my Twitter followers don't go up, I'm firing you. That was our KPI. So KPIs and actual goals don't actually have to always dine at the same table, but for the most part, they do. But remember that and ask yourself that, because when it comes to things like reporting, all you need to put on the paper, or the dashboard, or the whatever, are the numbers that you will get fired for, and the numbers that your boss will get fired for. And that's it. Everything else is superfluous. Third, you must have a system in place that allows you to collect and measure data. The gold standard for most marketers most of the time is Google Analytics, which also is conveniently free in exchange for giving all of your information to Google. You didn't think it was totally free, right? But you have to have some form of measurement in place. Adobe Analytics, Matomo, it doesn't matter, but you have to have something that measures and tracks effectively. You need those three things. There's one more thing you also need in order to do attribution analysis correctly, and that is you have to have good data. What is good data? It is 6 things. Number 1, your data has to be clean. If your data is not clean, if it's not prepared well and free of errors, you're going to make really, really bad assessments, right? We all run into this. Everyone has copied and pasted something wrong, right? So our data has to be clean. Second, our data has to be complete. We can't have missing information. Some forms of attribution analysis will just completely crap the bed if you've got a significant amount of missing information. If you've had, say, your IT department push up a new version of your website and they forgot your analytics code for a week, you have a problem. You have a gap in your data. The third thing that our data has to be is comprehensive. It has to answer the question we are being asked. How many of you have been asked about marketing's ROI? Okay, a decent number of you. ROI is a math formula, return on investment. So you need to be able to calculate what is the investment, which is everything from the ad dollars to your salary to the electricity in the server room. And you have to have the return, which is what money your company made. If you don't have access to the financials, you can't compute ROI. It simply doesn't work. So your data has to be comprehensive. Your data has to be well chosen, which means you need to eliminate unnecessary data. How many people have downloaded an analytics report from Facebook's page reporting? Right? Isn't that a spreadsheet great? It's 14 tabs with 50 columns each. And all we really care about is the likes one. Right? But we have to choose our data well. Fifth, our data has to be credible. It has to be clean and come from a reliable place. By the way, this includes bias. How many of you use something like social media analytics to determine topic models? Like, hey, I want to see what's trending or what's interesting to my audience, and use a social media monitoring tool, Talkwalker, Brand24, any of this. Most tools over-index on Twitter because Twitter's API is the best available, right? If you're a B2B marketer, the amount of data you get out of LinkedIn is approximately 0. But Twitter has biases. Right? You have to adjust for that. You have to know that Twitter skews lower income, that Twitter skews minority, except for I guess Russian bots do count. But either way, it's got a distinct bias. Pinterest has a bias. YouTube has a bias. GitHub has a bias. You've got to know the biases in your data when you're doing analytics. And finally, your data has to be calculable. It has to be usable in some format by both the machines you're going to have analyze it and by you, the person. If you can't read your data, if you can't move your data around, it's no good. Here's an easy test. Whatever vendors you use in analytics, if there is not an export to CSV button, fire that vendor today, because they have no interest in letting you have your data, right? So that's data quality. That is the last prerequisite to doing attribution analysis well. There are 5 methods to do attribution analysis. We'll go through them in order of increasing accuracy. The first model is the one that we all know and love because we're usually in a hurry. It's called last touch attribution, and it basically says the last thing that a customer did, give it credit. Hey, somebody clicked on your tweet and converted, awesome. Twitter gets the credit. Somebody searched for us and filled out a form, awesome. Google gets the credit. Someone came from a news website and they didn't convert, no credit. Last touch attribution is built into Google Analytics. If you are in the conversions menu on the left-hand side, it's under Goals Overview, that's what you see, just the last touch. This is the easiest form of attribution analysis. It is also the most wrong. Because unless you're selling chewing gum to 3-year-olds at the checkout line, there is slightly more to a purchase decision than the last thing somebody did. We know this intuitively, right? If you're selling SaaS software or real estate or colleges or jet planes or enterprise this or that, you know that the purchase journey is long and complex. Last touch completely fails on that front, but it's easy. The next one is called assisted conversion attribution. Maybe somebody does more than one thing, and the things that they do help out with conversions. In Google Analytics, you'll see this. Will see this in the multi-channel funnels menu under the goals menu on the right-hand side in conversions. And assisted conversions are really terrific because they give you a sense of, hey, something is helping out with our conversions. If you look at that menu, line 3 on this chart is social networks. Social networks played a role in being the last thing somebody did on my website for 124 conversions, but it played a role in 11 more. If I wasn't doing social, those extra 11 conversions might go away, right? So in Google Analytics, we want to be able to see what channels are helping out. If you are doing social media marketing well, you will have a substantial number of assisted conversions for social media because the chances are of someone immediately going to buy a $250,000 server appliance from a tweet are pretty low. But if you're helping create brand awareness, if you're creating engagement, if you're getting people to the website, you will show up in the assist. Assisted conversions, they are easy. There's still some accuracy issues, but they are substantially better than last touch. Now, suppose that you have things that you do that you care about a lot, right? You don't think everything is equal or even. Maybe you think like Facebook's a load of excremento de toro for the Spanish-speaking folks in the room. Or you have a PR firm that you spend $25,000 a month on that you have to justify its existence for. You can create what is called an attribution model in Google Analytics. You would start with one of the built-in models. There's last touch, our friend. There's time decay, which, by the way, is probably the best out-of-the-box attribution model in Google Analytics because it just says stuff that happened a long time ago shouldn't be counted as much as stuff that happened recently. You would go into the attribution models, which is at the bottom of the conversions menu in Google Analytics, and start building your own conversion model for attribution. If you do webinars and you're good about tagging your webinar invitations and things, you can set up a rule in here that says give webinars 2 times as much credit as email or 3 times as much. If you are at an event like this and you're on stage and you send people to a website like wherecanIgettheslides.com, you can tag everybody who comes in through that and give that more credit for conversion because you know, as a marketer, it's more important. You know that it's working better. So that's the most sophisticated version of attribution analysis and modeling. And you can put different models up in Google Analytics and see the difference in terms of how each channel behaves. Find the model that you can understand best, that you can explain to your executives, and that reflects the reality you want to portray in your reporting. Attribution modeling in Google Analytics is medium because you have to spend some time thinking about, here's what I want to do, here's how I want to give credit to things. But the accuracy is pretty good. This is the last model that you can do in default Google Analytics. After this, we go off the rails. In Google Analytics, the data itself, you can capture where people come from throughout conversions. Like they can get very, very complex paths to conversion. If you think about a conversion as a Jenga tower, right? Does anyone know what Jenga is, the game? Is anyone who doesn't know what it is? Okay, for the folks who don't know what it is, it's a tower of big wood blocks. They had them down at the expo floor the other day at the welcome night. And you pull out blocks, people take turns, and the person who pulls the block out and makes the tower fall over loses and has to buy drinks for everyone else. If you think about a conversion in your analytics as a Jenga tower, and you pull out the email block and it doesn't fall over, and you pull out the paid search block and it doesn't fall over, but then you pull out the social block and it falls over, you know that social played a really important role in that conversion. Now, if you were to do that with every single conversion in the history of your Google Analytics, you could build a model using what's called machine learning to truly understand the overall impact of any one channel. This is an example, again, from my website, of just how important Google's organic searches for my website. Google's organic search is the most important thing that I could possibly be doing, and then there's a few other things there. But by doing this advanced machine learning model, you can get a sense of how any one source is impacting the entirety of your conversions. This type of attribution analysis is very accurate. It is very, very accurate. It is also not easy to do because you need to be able to do machine learning. But when you do it, you can prove very easily, here's what's working within our Google Analytics infrastructure. And finally, for those of you who are in the most complex environments, where you have a mix of online and offline and all sorts of crazy different things, there's a last type of attribution analysis that allows you to take all of the information that you have, every metric from every system, social, paid ads, marketing automation, your CRM, ERP, the number of sales calls, the number of times your sales guy said, I don't know on the phone, everything, you lump it all together into one gigantic spreadsheet, and at the very end of the spreadsheet, there's a single column like revenue, something really important. When you use what's called deep learning, you can build a model of attribution that accounts for everything, right? It is extremely difficult to do, but if you have a complex environment where you are trying to figure out, like, what is the impact of the language that we use in our social posts, whether emojis contain, or whether a social post with poop emojis matters, anything that you can think that you'd want to measure, you can put into a deep learning model, and it will tell you, this is what leads to revenue. We did a project like this. It took about 3 months for an automotive client. It is hard to do, but it lets you account for every possible thing that your customer, your client, your boss wants to know. The 3 tools that you'll need to do attribution analysis well, Google Analytics or some form of web analytics will get you all the way up to attribution modeling. And for a good chunk of the room, that's a good place to stop because you can get a decent report out of that. If you want to do the machine learning and the deep learning, you'll have to use probably a programming language like R and probably a service provider like IBM, IBM's Watson Studio. So to sum up the attribution methods, don't use last touch ever. It's always wrong, unless you sell chewing gum. Assisted conversions are easy, but the accuracy is low. That lives in Google Analytics too. Attribution modeling, easy as medium, accuracy is good, use Google Analytics. If your boss is breathing down your neck and this says, I really want to understand what's going on in digital, use machine learning. If your boss is breathing down your neck and saying, I need you to tell me exactly what works in all of our marketing, you have to use deep learning. So those are the 5 attribution models. Which one's right for you? I don't know, because the answer for you is going to be based on how much time you have, how much money you have, and how much knowledge you have, and how much you're willing to invest in an attribution model. You could probably pick up, if you take the free Google Analytics Academy course on advanced Google Analytics, you could probably teach yourself attribution modeling like a couple of weeks. Has anyone here not taken the Analytics Academy courses? Okay, so this is your homework assignment. If you go to analyticsacademy.withgoogle.com, there are 6 courses completely for free where Google will teach you how to use analytics properly, including the advanced features. Like analyticsacademy.withgoogle.com, and you can learn how to use Google Analytics and all of its associated pieces really, really well. Now here's the problem. Suppose we've done this attribution analysis, right? And we come up with this really awesome set of insights. So what? Our job is only half done. Actually, our job is probably about a third done. Is be able to communicate it effectively to our stakeholders. That means you need to be able to communicate with data, which is not a skill that comes built into most marketers. It's not a skill that comes built into most people. And so, huge surprise, there's a framework for this too. The framework is, in order to communicate data well, your data that you communicate has to be clear. When somebody looks at it, they have to know what they're looking at. Think about if you open up like Microsoft Excel, for example, there's a little charts button, and you click on the charts button, and this huge window pops up with every possible chart. You're like, what do I do? Fundamentally, when you're doing data communication of your attribution analysis, you're communicating one of 4 things. You're communicating comparison, distribution, composition, or relationship. That's it. You're going to communicate one of those things. Chances are the one that you're going to do most with attribution analysis is comparison. You show a bar chart of different things, and you ask yourself the question, what could we improve? I show this chart here. This is my attribution analysis. What could I improve? Well, anything that's not a really long blue bar, I could obviously improve, because I suck at most everything, apparently. But this is a question, and by the way, keep track of these questions and the answers, because this is how you put together your strategy for what you're going to do with your analytics. So, bar charts, graphs, lines, charts, all those things that are comparing something, that's what the question you have to ask is, what could we improve? If you are faced with a chart that looks like a bell curve or a histogram, whatever, all you're really asking is what's sticking out, what's unusual that doesn't fit inside the bell curve. You will almost never use this with attribution analysis. You will use it for social media analytics a ton. If you're using this, if you're looking at tweets, there's always going to be that one tweet that does super well, or that one Instagram post that got like 5,000 likes and then nobody ever talks to you again. Right? That's anomaly detection. That's not an attribution analysis. Sometimes you will look at things like this lovely scatter plot chart, which looks like my marksmanship. All this is asking is, how are things related to each other? Again, with attribution analysis, you're not going to do a whole lot of this. This is more for digging deep in the data, so that when your boss says, okay, well, why is organic search so important? Then you would have to dig into the metrics that make up organic search, and you use charts like this. And finally, the last type of communication you might do would be composition. How much of any one thing is there? With attribution analysis, if you use a pie chart, I will show up at your house and punch you in the face. Because this is the wrong visualization to use. This only shows composition. But as you're looking at charts, as you're thinking about reports that you put together, ask yourself those questions. What can we improve? What's unusual or outlying? How are things related to each other? How much of any one thing is there? This helps you communicate your findings better. So that's part one of the framework. Part two, your data has to be clean. Your visualization has to be clean in the sense that it's well labeled and documented. The number one thing you should never ever do and never buy a vendor for when it comes to attribution analysis or any kind of data is because their stuff looks cool. Right? This is a bad decision. Because what you've been programmed to believe by mass media is that this is cool looking. Right? You watch an episode of The Flash or something like that, like, wow, look at that, but actually this is useless. You have no idea what's going on. I don't have any idea what's going on, and neither do the characters who are acting on screen. Someone just makes a page with a bunch of numbers on it. This is what you never want to do when you are communicating something as important as, hey, boss, here's where you should spend your money. Because if their boss is looking at this and she says, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to give you no money. Right? We want our data, we want our visualizations to be clean. Our visualizations should be complete in the sense that they have to, again, answer the question that our boss is asking. What's working? Right? If it's partial or if it's cluttered up, it's no good. Our visualizations also have to be concise. Communicate only the information that needs to be communicated, nothing more. I can't tell you the number of marketing KPI dashboards I've seen that look like somebody backed a truck up and poured the charts all over the dashboard, right? The perfect example of this, for those of you who are not American, I'm going to preface this. There's a pharmaceutical and health store called CVS in America that they sell like pharmaceuticals and other healthcare needs. They're known for their receipts. Right? In terms of communicating important information, that first piece is what I bought. That bottom piece is everything else they attach to the receipt, which is completely superfluous. I have no need for any of it. You don't want your visualizations to look like this. You don't want your visualizations to have 10 times as much crap that doesn't answer the question that your boss wants you to answer. Our visualizations should be cited well. There should be a citation that tells people where it came from, what's in it, how we did it, so that someone else can replicate it, or that someone else can do some more digging, or ideally they can go ask someone else, hey, so marketing says sales is really screwing up this week, so how can we fix that? Your charts, your attribution analysis should always have citation. And finally, your attribution analysis has to be conclusive. This is okay. Right? This is okay. This is better for conveying what we should be doing, for the action we want to take. Now, if you don't want it to look like a ridiculous cartoon, you could do something like this. Our recommended course of action is to do the top three things, the things that are in red. this is what I want you to do. Because at the end of the day, we don't really care about analytics. We don't care about insights. We care about what are you going to do and what's it going to take to do it, right? And when you're giving an attribution analysis to your boss, they are asking you implicitly, tell me what decision to make. When you do your visualizations like this, you are telling them, this is the decision I want you to make, or this is the decision I've made, please don't fire me. That's how you do communication of your attribution analysis. So now what? Your boss says, great, I agree with you, organic search is the way to go. What are you going to do about it? Remember what we said, when you're looking at your charts, what could we improve? You want to do what's called KPI mapping. Take that metric that we've identified, that is the one source of truth, and explode it. What goes into it? If organic search is important, I might explode organic search into subsequent metrics like maybe I should do, what formats are involved in ranking well? What frequency of content should I create? What topics should I talk about? What kind of quality of content should I be doing? Every KPI that you have, and there should only be like 2 or 3, and the top ones in your attribution analysis, you should decompose into a chart like this so that you then can figure out, okay, I want to focus on this, and I'm going to assign my coworker to do work on this, and I'm going to have an outside agency handle this. This is how you develop your plan of action. Let's say we pick, okay, keywords are really important. What's next? From our attribution analysis, we can now do all the cool stuff that all the vendors on the trade show floor are telling us to do, like predictive analytics and forecasting and using artificial intelligence to come up with action plans for SEO for years to come. But you need to do it in this order. What happened? So what? Now what? What next? If you run your attribution analysis for social and you follow this framework, you will demonstrate marketing impact. You will demonstrate the value of the work that you do and make your CMO super happy. Thank you very much.
Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.